Welcome back to Alice Talks Football and welcome back to another live Manchester United news, transfer news and update show. I have to say, there is so much going on. It is all going down. There is so much to talk about in today's live show that I'm going to try my best to fit it into 30 minutes as well as getting into some live chats and discussions. But, I mean, literally, Garnacho is done. Højlund is essentially done. Antony exits. Some talks of there being an agreement. Obligation of around 30 to 35 million being reported as well. Mixed reports on Antony. Suggestions that the deal was agreed or the deal's set to be agreed or there's set to be a breakthrough. Links to Lemens. Why is it being held up? Is Onana going to go? Is Bandia going to go? What is the latest on Lemens? The whole situation. INEOS to hold an emergency meeting after the Burnley game of Amorim about his future. If he loses to Burnley, could they sack him on the spot? Or are they going to give him a bit more time? Links to Glasner already. Could Amorim go? Could he walk? Is he safe? Is he not safe? Some reports say he's safe. Some reports say he's not safe. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about Amorim insisting on us signing a central midfielder. And I'm going to say 40 million for Garnacho, 40 million for Højlund, 30 million for Antony. That is enough to get us Baleba, and that is enough to get us Lemens in the door. So Manchester United, please go ahead and do that. So, hello, and welcome back to Alice Talks Football, and welcome back to this live show. We will also discuss the Maino situation. I would be absolutely fuming. I believe that Maino is a generational talent, and people don't agree with me on that. But we saw what Maino did at 18 years of age in that 23-24 season in the FA Cup against Liverpool and the Premier League at the Euros. And I just think there's such a fantastic player in Maino. And it doesn't matter who plays in that midfield pivot, they play bad. It doesn't matter if it's Bruno, Casemiro, Garte, Maino. We'd probably make Baleba look bad in that midfield pivot. We'd probably make Declan Rice look bad in that midfield pivot. I just think something's got to change with that midfield, and it isn't Maino, because Casemiro's going at the end of the season. Bruno's going at the end of the season. Are we really convinced by Garte? No. Maino's the last one I want to sell. I'm telling you that. But let's dive into everything that's happening, because it is all going down now and all of that as well. But I hope the connection is all right. I hope we're not lagging too much. Someone's just said I froze. First of all, it's all going down. It's all happening right now because it should have happened earlier in the window. And it's got to the point when we got to the last week of the window and it's all happening and it's all going down and there's all a bit of a panic. But everything is going down. Like, the amount of news coming out is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Let me read this up here, okay? Alejandro Garnacho has arrived in London as Chelsea and Manchester United have signed all the documents. The deal is completed club to club, 40 million plus 10% sell-on clause. A medical to follow, then Garnacho will sign a 7-year deal at Chelsea. Breaking verbal agreement reached between Napoli and United for Højlund, loan with obligation to buy, again, about 40 million. So, pending final details, we've basically made around 80 million for Garnacho and Højlund, depending on medical final details, all of that stuff. But we've basically made around 80 million for the two of those guys. If we continue on, though, there's now reports of us getting 30 million for Antony. Now, there's two reports. One report is coming out that Manchester United have reached a verbal agreement and agreed a deal for Antony. Sorry, but Betis have agreed a deal with Man United for Antony, and he will leave, and Betis are going to hold 50% of the player's rights, and we're going to do about 20 million quid for him. Now, these reports are coming out from not very reliable sources out in Spain about us agreeing a deal with Betis for Antony, it being a permanent deal, but them only giving us 20 million and then they pay more in the future. A lot of English sources said an agreement is closed and it's believed to be 30 million. So good sources like Darmish have said this. Betis are growing increasingly confident they can strike for Antony. Talks are advancing over a move that would see Antony move on an initial loan with an obligation to buy next summer. Some reports are suggesting the total fee could be worth over 30 million. There's good reports and there's reliable reports coming out that Antony exit is pretty much expected to be done in the next few hours or the next few days. The breakthrough is close. There's verbal agreements in place between United and Real Betis. We've verbally agreed a deal. And there's rumours that he's going to go on loan with an obligation to buy 30 to 35 million pounds. So it's good for United to finally get Antony off the door. So it looks like a 30 million Antony exit is in the door. The Højlund and Garnacho exit is essentially agreed, pending final details. But that could be potentially £110 million coming in. Of course, with book value and all of that, it's actually less than that. We can spend less than that. But when you look at the wages saved with Antony, particularly, not that Højlund and Garnacho are particularly high wages, if you bring everything in, Manchester United selling players is very good because it gives us the funds to go late in the window for a midfielder, and we have to sign a midfielder. At the end of the day, I've lost a lot of confidence in Ruben Amorim. I want Ruben Amorim to succeed. I want him to make it work. I think sacking a manager the minute the transfer window closes 3 games into the season is just ridiculous. But I am losing a lot of confidence and faith in Amorim to turn it around because he's not adapting the system. I want Amorim to turn it around. I want him to succeed, but I really am struggling to believe in Ruben Amorim. But if I am to believe in Ruben Amorim, he needs a midfield signing. Because if you give Ruben Amorim Lemens and Baleba, then I will start to believe in him more because I think he's got the tools to succeed. And if he doesn't succeed, that is on him because I actually think he would have been backed if you get him Lemens and Baleba. I don't, Amorim going into the window without a midfielder, it's not going to be easy for Amorim. I'm aware of that. And I'm struggling to believe he's the right guy, but I don't want to sack someone this early in the window. I think it would be silly. I think it would be reactionary, and I want it to work. I'm struggling to believe it will work at the moment. But I think with a midfielder and a goalkeeper, it definitely could work because I look at a lot of our issues in the games recently. It's been midfield and goalkeeper. So I'm just thinking the best thing United can do is 1, keep Maino because Maino will probably outlive Amorim if it goes wrong, and I think Maino is the future. And 2, bring in Baleba because I think Baleba is the perfect partner for Maino to make it work. Sell Antony, sell Højlund, sell Garnacho, hurry up and get them ends, go for Baleba. I think that's the best thing we can do this window, if I'm going to be completely honest. Onana needs to go. He does. I'm sorry. I've tried to protect Onana. I've tried to be patient. I tried to give him time. The fact that he got a hand on about 4 of those penalties and still couldn't save them. Onana put in, I said I would rather Onana play than Bayindir for ages. I've been going on about it. But after that Onana performance, he can never play for Manchester United again. I'm sorry, that was like if Onana had put bets against Man United, I wouldn't be surprised that performance was that bad. Adapt the system to what? I mean, all the best managers adapt. Play a midfield 3. The midfield 2 doesn't work if it's Casemiro and Ugarte. The midfield doesn't work if it's Casemiro and Bruno. The midfield 2 doesn't work if it's Ugarte and Bruno. The midfield 2 doesn't work if it's Ugarte and Maino. Why don't we adapt the midfield 2? That's what I'm saying. Why don't we adapt the midfield 2? Why don't we make it a midfield 3? That's what I'm saying. Either you have someone like Casemiro be the central centre-back if you want to go 5 at the back. And if Casemiro is the central centre-back, then he can step into midfield with Maino and Bruno in there. Or we have someone, or we just go to a back 4. Amorim insists on the central centre-back stepping up and build up. Put Casemiro at central centre-back and have Maino and Bruno. Turn it into midfield 3. I don't know. It's not reaction at this point. It's reacting to reality. True. I mean, people have called me all sorts of names. I've got so much abuse and stick from people for saying I'm concerned about Amorim. I've been called reactionary. I've been called negative. I've been called toxic. I'm just trying to be realistic with the situation. I'm someone that gives. I am someone, and if you've been following my channel, that likes to give every manager a bit of time, likes to give every player the benefit of the doubt. I was sticking up for Xerxes when everyone was hating him at the beginning of the season. I'm someone that likes to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. So when I'm negative, it's because I'm concerned. I'm not sitting here screaming and hurling abuse at Amorim. I'm sitting here frustrated because I can't see him making it work. And I've lost faith 3 games into the season, which I hate. I hate that I've lost faith 3 games into the season. I want Amorim to make it work. I want Amorim to succeed. And I understand that Amorim is going to need a little bit of time to make things click and a midfield reinvestment and a goalkeeper reinvestment. But when you're losing to Grimsby like that, and when the same system he's been doing for nearly a year just has not worked and cannot beat Grimsby, yes, the players could have done better, all of that. But we're having this full rebuild, and I am losing faith. I want Amorim to succeed. I think he's a nice guy. I want him to do well. I want it to work. I'm just losing belief. I need us to go and get 3 wins in a row in the Premier League. Burnley, City, Chelsea. We're good in the bigger games. I need us to go and get 3 wins in a row in the Premier League, build a bit of confidence, build a bit of form, because we're on track for relegation under Ruben Amorim if you look at our points per game. And that is not good enough. So people can call it reactionary, people can call it negative. We're only 3 games into the season. But I am concerned because I love this club. I want this club to succeed. and I want Amorim to succeed. But when that happened versus Grimsby, I am concerned. You know, when you came 15th last season, lost the Europa League final to Spurs, it is the same manager. I am concerned. Had Amorim, got us third place last season, come in, done a phenomenal job, and we won the Europa League, and we just started this season poorly, it'd be different. I'd be saying, guys, calm down. We know what Amorim can do. Like, if we were really good last season, I'm saying, calm down. Like, calm down. It's just one game. But I think the fact that we haven't had a run of form under Amorim, it means he's not going to get the time that maybe Ten Hag would have got. I gave Ten Hag the full second season because he came third and won the Carabao in his third season. With Amorim, I said, look, once it gets to about 10 games, if I haven't seen improvement, I think I'm going to have to go Amorim out because he's not done enough in his first season. So I'm not trying to be reactionary or negative. And people are hurling abuse. You're toxic. You're toxic. I want Amorim to succeed. I want Manchester United to succeed. I think it would be stupid to sack Amorim right at the end of the transfer window, 3 games into the season. I think it would be stupid for Manchester United to do that. But it's reacting to reality of I am concerned. If you want to sell Maino for the system and we sack you 3 months later and we sold Maino for cheaper and he's doing well elsewhere, it will be one of the stupidest things we've done. You make it work. That's what I think. Bayindir is awful at corners, but still way better. I mean, Bayindir and Onana, it doesn't matter who's playing, they don't fill you with any confidence. They don't. If you're a centre-back, they don't feel confidence. There was a leak about it, actually, that came out today that none of the Man United players are confident, whether it's Bayindir or Onana. With Cunha and Buma and Bruno, we might as well try playing without a striker and 2 sixes in the midfield as well. I mean, we could try. I'm all up for adaptations. I have to say, being positive, Xerxes was very good when he came on versus Grimsby. He's probably not fully fit. Probably not fully fit, but I thought Xerxes was quite good when he came on. I thought there was good moments from Xerxes. I'd quite like to see Xerxes in a false 9 role. Would you bring in Ollie? No. A lot of people are having Ollie re-envisionment. I'm not bringing Ollie Van Gunnar Solskjaer back. It didn't make sense. I mean, look, the 4-2-3-1 wasn't great, but it worked a lot better than the 3-4-3. I don't think it's necessarily about formation. I think we should do a midfield 3 and a 4 at the back because I just think it works better. But it's not necessarily about the formation. It's about the way he uses it. Amorim is playing 3 at the back, yeah? And you can succeed with 3 at the back. And 3 at the back can work well. But it's the way we build out. It's so predictable. Why don't we start building out more centrally? Why don't we have someone like Maino in the pivot dropping deeper to help us build out? It's the way that we do everything is really easy to predict. I've said for ages, Onana's the worst starting goalkeeper we've had. We've had bad backups, but he's horrendous. Yeah. I mean, that was one of the worst performances from a goalkeeper in my life. Alice, the system's not as rigid as you think. Look, I want to see some changes in the system. And look, I want to see changes versus Burnley. We should beat Burnley. We really should beat Burnley. Yeah. He's not playing 3-4-3. It's more of a 3-2-2-3. But it's the way that we play. It's just not adapted. It's not changed. It's predictable. We struggled in a 4-3-3 and we struggled in a 4-2-3-1 under multiple managers. Don't get me wrong, but there's a we were struggling and coming 8th. We were struggling and coming 15th. Struggling and coming 8th and struggling and coming 15th are 2 very different things. At least 8th, you're in that sort of race for Europe. I would rather be struggling in a 4-3-3 and come 8th than be struggling in a 3 at the back system and come 15th again. So yeah, I get that 4 at the back wasn't working. No matter who the manager is, really good managers come to Manchester United and the club makes them bad managers. And the club is clearly a big issue and it's clearly a toxic issue. Don't get me wrong. And the 4-3-3s hasn't worked, the 4-2-3-1s haven't worked, the 3 at the back haven't worked. But the 4 at the back was getting us 8th and we were complaining. That's a lot better than 3 at the back getting us 15th. Now, I'm not saying it's necessarily about changing the formation, but it's changing the way we build up. It's changing little things. Do you know what I mean? And look, if Amorim has a good goalkeeper and Amorim has a good midfielder, I think Amorim can do a lot better things than we're currently seeing. Don't get me wrong. And I think INEOS, if you're going to back Amorim and you're going to stick with Amorim, which you said you're going to do, go give him Baleba, go give him Lamens and stop fooling around. Because the start to the season's already been awful. It's already been awful. Or you've been set by Besiktas. Bayindir is a slightly better shot stopper than Onana, but worse at set pieces. And Onana's pretty bad at set pieces, so that tells you how bad Bayindir is at set pieces. We're going to talk about the Lemons news. Mourinho apparently available as well. I'm not bringing back Mourinho or Ollie. Look, I'm not going to talk about Amorim alternatives until it looks like Amorim's going to be sacked, which means if we do lose to Burnley, that will probably be a conversation we have. I don't get why Newcastle fan has commented that Sesko's a flop, blessing in disguise, we missed out on him. I don't get how you can call Sesko a flop after one start. Why is everybody calling Sesko a flop after one start? Guys, if you want, like, I'm sorry, you cannot call Sesko a flop after one start. Sesko had nice moments. He just hasn't scored a goal. It's ridiculous. I mean, Sesko, Kuna, and Bumo are not flops. We're 3 games into the season. Why are people even thinking that? What? Give new players time. Antony's first 3 games for us was mint. He ended up being a flop. We've had players that have been crap the first 2 games for us and ended up being really good. I mean, if you, like, honestly, the people writing off Sesko already, like, honestly, grow up. Like if you're writing off our new signings after 3 games, grow up. Have some patience. Grow up. You know, look, Sesko definitely needs a bit of confidence. Don't get me wrong, but to write him off is ridiculous. Right, to write Onana off, absolutely fair. Had long enough, had enough chances. He needs to F off. So let's bring in Lamens. What has been said on Lamens? So this has come from Ben Jacobs and Alex Crook. We've had a good transfer window. Manchester United continue to work on Lamens with the hope of finalising a deal before the window shuts. No club-to-club agreement yet, but Galatasaray made an approach. Galatasaray have made an approach, despite other reports saying that Man United haven't agreed personal terms. Romano says that Manchester United have agreed personal terms. Fabrizio Romano says that they've agreed personal terms with Lamens. He wants the move, despite other reports sort of suggesting that he's going to go elsewhere. Man United are working on Lamens. Look, if you're Royal Antwerp, who wanted 14 million for Lamens, then put the price tag up to 17 million, then saw Man United were going to get him and put the price tag up to 20 million, then saw Onana's recent performances and got the price tag up to 25 million, I get it. They're taking the mick because it's Manchester United. They watched that Onana performance and they've decided to pretty much add 10 million to his original asking price, which is absolute BS. It's absolute Manchester United tax. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to overpay. But when Onana's putting in those kind of performances, we haven't got a leg to stand on. Negotiation-wise, we have not got a leg to stand on. So it's one of those situations where it's sort of like, just pay up now. Like, I just want us to hurry up and get the deal done. I don't want to overpay too much. But they're looking at Onana and they're putting the price up. Look, for me, Lamens was a £15 million player that they now want 20 million for because Man United are interested. And like, for me, I don't want to spend more than 20 million on Lamens. I think it'd be silly to do that. But when Onana's playing as bad as he is, when Onana's playing as bad as he is, we haven't got a leg to stand on. We haven't got a leg to stand on. That's the problem. Like, we want Lamens. They're like, well, look how bad Onana was your last 2 games. Look how bad Bayendier was your last 2 games. We're going to put the price tag up for Lamens 5 million because you're desperate for a goalkeeper. That's the problem we've got. Do you think Maynard will go? I don't think Maynard will go, but I think if he does go, it's a disgrace. That's all I'm going to say on that. Crazy to think that people are already calling Sesko a flop and writing him off. It's just because they're jealous that we signed him. That's what it is. I've seen a lot of Newcastle fans saying, blessing in disguise, not getting Sesko and all of that. And it's like, look, I'm like, Sesko could go and score 20 goals for us this season. Like, we don't know that. Like, we don't know that. And they're like, blessing in disguise. Best thing we did is missing out on Sesko. He's rubbish. All of a sudden, Sesko's rubbish because he's had 3 games at Manchester United and 2 are off the bench. Like, I just think it's mad that you could watch a player once and just assume that they're rubbish and just write them off as a young kid in an unstable environment with not much service. I said we shouldn't have spent that much money on Sesko and we should have gone for a midfielder. But I think Sesko is a good player and I think he will succeed at Manchester United. I thought he had some nice touches, some nice movements, some nice headers. Yes, he didn't score the goal. Yes, he went 10th for the penalty, but that's because he had cramp and could barely walk at the end of the game. But for people coming out there and being like, oh yeah, blessing in disguise, we didn't get Sesko. I just like, really? Like, really? 3 games, 1 stop. Like, come on. You can't be that brain dead to think that if a flat player has 1 bad game, they're just going to be a flop. Like, he might not have the best first season with us, but you can't judge someone after 3 games. It's ridiculous. You know, people are actually judging players after 3 games. Højlund's set to go to Napoli. You can buy whoever you like, but this system is shite. We need to see more from it. It worked at Sporting, it worked in the Portuguese league, but it's not working here. And Amorim needs to make us less predictable. The 3 at the back can work. Elements of the way Amorim wants to play can work, with a good midfielder, with a good goalkeeper, don't get me wrong, but the system relies so much on individual quality, and it's very predictable that things need to change. There needs to be adaptations to the system. I have faith in Sesko, but like Rasmus needs proper rotation and cover, and I do think with Xerxes starting to get fit, I think that will be good. I really like what we're seeing for Xerxes. Xerxes got booed off in December time, but I really liked Xerxes the back end of the season. I thought Xerxes, when he came off the bench, had some nice touches. Sesko will be good with service. Yeah, I think he needs a bit of service. He needs a bit of time. He needs a bit of confidence. But I think there's a good player in Sesko. And look, I'm a big fan of Joshua Xerxes. I've been backing him for a while, and people will write him off. It was also said, by the way, in regards to Le Mans by Sky Sports, that Manchester United have yet to come to an agreement with Antwerp for the signing of Le Mans. There's no agreement with the player they are claiming, but United have a price in mind and want to remain disciplined in their approach so they won't overpay for the player. Romano says personal terms have been agreed. Other sources say personal terms haven't been agreed. A lot of mixed reports coming out on Le Mans, but United have a confidence they'll get the Le Mans deal done. They just don't want to overpay. If I'm going to be honest, I think we've got a 25% chance of signing Baleba. I think with Antony, Garnacho and Højlund going, with the fact that we desperately need a midfielder, like, if INEOS do not sign a midfielder this summer, then Amorim's probably gone before Christmas. And that isn't even Amorim's fault. Amorim needs a midfielder. Amorim needs a midfielder. He really needs a midfielder. So I hope INEOS get one. I think it's 25% to get Baleba. I think you put in a right bid, you pay a certain price, Baleba's head's been moved by United. It can happen, but it's not going to be easy. Should we continue into news? So, there is reports that Manchester United are going to have an emergency meeting with Ruben Amorim over his future. So, Ruben Amorim will hold talks with club officials during the international break, having cast fresh doubt over his future with his blunt remarks following the Grimsby debacle. So we got a game versus Burnley at the weekend. After that game, Ruben Amorim is going to have a conversation with Manchester United about his future. This is when the transfer window ends and all of that. And all I'm going to say is, you know, his remarks versus Grimsby, I'm sorry to the fans, you know, something needs to change and you can't change 22 players, suggesting the dressing room is lost. The way that Amorim was speaking after the Grimsby game, he seems lost. It felt like he was accepting that he might need to go. It felt like he was working his way up to resigning. And Amorim threatened to resign back in January after the Brighton game, remember? Amorim threatened to resign. He said, don't pay me compensation, I'm going to leave. He threatened to resign. INEOS convinced him to stay. If we lose to Burnley, and it is a bad loss to Burnley, the guy could resign. He could resign. Now, he's going to hold talks with the club officials in the international break because of his comments. They need to get round what they were. Look, if we go and beat Burnley 5-0, we're going to go into the international break feeling a lot better, feeling a lot more positive. And I'm telling you this now, the international break is 2 weeks of negativity. So Amorim, please batter Burnley. I need Manchester United to get a result. I need us to batter Burnley. I need us to go into the international break on a positive. But if we go into the international break after a negative game versus Burnley and Amorim has this meeting, it is about his future. And you know, they could make decisions. They could make decisions if we lose to Burnley. I think they will give him 10 Premier League games. But the way he was talking wasn't the most positive. The way he was talking after the game wasn't the most positive, let's be honest. It wasn't the most positive. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But there will be conversations. There will be conversations ongoing after that game. There will be an emergency meeting. Hard to imagine actually resign and walk away from millions and payout. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that. He says he will, but it's all talk as well. I don't believe he walks away from millions, but he could. He seriously could. Should have sold Bruno. Did you see the 45 minutes versus Grimsby without Bruno Fernandes? Do you know our last 3 games without Bruno? 4-0 loss to Crystal Palace in the Premier League, one of the worst performances I've ever seen from Manchester United under Ten Hag. We were 2-0 down to Newcastle at half-time at Old Trafford, one of the worst performances I've ever seen from Manchester United. And we were 2-0 down to Grimsby at half-time. Bruno Fernandes does not suit Amorim's system. He doesn't suit it. It doesn't work. He wasn't great in the first 2 games of the season. But when Bruno doesn't play, we're worse. Bruno is such a good player that when he doesn't play, we are worse. I don't think Bruno suits the system. And people can say, sell Bruno, he doesn't suit the system. But we've not seen anyone go into Amorim's midfield and suit the system. We've not seen one person go into Bruno's role and do well, or go into the midfield and do well under Amorim. Bruno Fernandes is our best player. Bruno Fernandes was poor the first 2 games of the season. But reality without Bruno Fernandes is going almost 3-0 down to Grimsby. Reality without Bruno Fernandes was losing 4-0 to Crystal Palace in the worst performance we had under Ten Hag. Reality without Bruno Fernandes was the game that Xerxes got booed off, remember? That was reality without Bruno Fernandes. So everybody's saying, sell Bruno to Saudi, Bruno should have gone to Saudi, blah, 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 blah. Do you honestly think we'd be better off without Bruno Fernandes? He might not suit the system, but the system doesn't work. Why are we selling Bruno Fernandes to Saudi for 100 million, which is a nice amount of money and could bring us in Baleba, but Baleba could struggle in this system? Bruno Fernandes is one of the very few players in world football that can be thrown into a crap team, a crap environment, a non-working system and still put in a performance. He's one of the only players in world football that can do that. He is a world-class player, and I think if he was at any other club, we'd be begging him to join us. He'd be seen as one of the best players in the world, but because he's at Manchester United and thrown into this crap, it's like, everyone's like, we missed a trick not selling Bruno to Saudi. What? Because we want to be relegated? I don't like Bruno in the pivot. I thought Bruno was crap the first 2 games of the season, but we get worse when he doesn't play. And he doesn't even suit that role, and that isn't even his best position. But it's scary when he doesn't play, because selling Bruno because he's holding us back is the absolute most BS I hear, because we don't know the system works. If the system worked and Bruno didn't fit the system, cool, time to go, you're getting older, we need players that fit the system, what we want to do. But the system hasn't worked yet. The midfield hasn't worked no matter who plays. So to say that Bruno's holding back the system when we have no proof that it works at Manchester United, yes, it works at Sporting, but we have no proof it works at Manchester United because Bruno's holding back the system, I feel like it's copium. I feel like it's copium. He should have been benched in the Fulham game. He should have been benched in the Arsenal game in terms of he should have come off at the 60th, 70th minute. He was having a stinker. Don't get me wrong. He was bad. And I'm a big Bruno fan. He was bad in the other two games of the season. But he's not holding back the system. You know, it's copium to say, oh, Bruno's holding back the system. We should have sold Bruno. Bruno's the reason it's not working. Bruno's holding us back. McTominay was holding us back for 3 years. Look what he's done. Fred was holding us back. Look, Fred was holding us back. Maguire was holding us back. David De Gea was holding us back. Cristiano Ronaldo, who scored 20 goals, was holding us back. As a fan base, we do this stupid thing where things aren't going well, things aren't working, and we blame 1 or 2 players. They're the 2 players that are holding us back. Look, a Baleba Wharton pivot would be unbelievable under Ruben Amorim. I think that would work really well. But we still don't know if the pivot's going to work under Ruben Amorim because we've got no proof of it at Manchester United. So, for me, the same people that blame Ronaldo, the same people that blame McTominay, the same people that blame Varane, the same people that blamed this person, that person, that person, are the same people that are blaming now Bruno Fernandes. Bruno doesn't suit the system. I don't like Bruno in the pivot. But to say Bruno's holding back the system and that Bruno's the reason it's not working, and to think that Bruno is the reason it's not working and he's the sole reason the system is not working and he's the sole reason we're being held back is copium. It's crazy. It's crazy. Because whenever we don't play Bruno, we get this reality check. We get this reality check. Like, we really do. Just look at the Grimsby. Look at Crystal Palace. You know, it's not Bruno, it's the players collectively. It's not a case of we sell Bruno, we get 100 million, we buy Baleba, and all of a sudden we're 10 times better. That sounds like nice on paper. I get why people want to believe that, but it's just not. You know, it's just not a case of that. Obviously, I want to talk about Amorim. So he's having a meeting over his future, and I thought Ben Jacobs said something quite interesting when the United stand the other day. And in regards to Amorim, because we were just talking, could Amorim walk? Ben Jacobs said the following. The mentality of Amorim is very much that if in his head he felt like he couldn't get the best out of the players, the project was not going in the right direction, I don't think he'd wait to be pushed. I think he'd go to the club and it would be very much mutual. We're not there yet. Ben Jacobs says if Amorim gets to the point where he thinks he's done, he can't get the best out of the players, he would mutually agree to leave. There is going to be a meeting after the Burnley game. Hopefully we beat Burnley. Hopefully it's positive. But there is a feeling that he could walk if he doesn't feel he's going to get the best out of them. That's the feeling. There has been links to Oliver Glasner. The Mail has linked us to Oliver Glasner. But I'm going to be honest, I don't think United have even considered Oliver Glasner at this point in time. I think it's speculation over Amorim's future. We want some clicks. Man United gets clicks. Let's pretend they're interested in Oliver Glasner. I don't think there's any credibility in the Mail linking us to Oliver Glasner. Paul Hurst did say that Ruben Amorim still has the backing of the board, including United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who's prepared to give him time to turn things around. He's saying that Amorim still has the backing of the board. Obviously, we got told that Ten Hag at the back end of the board and got sacked a week later, so it's hard to know what to believe. But there are sources saying that we are going to give Amorim the backing in a bit more time. They don't want to sack him this quickly, which is fair. What Amorim did versus Grimsby is a sackable offence. Amorim driving Maynard out the club, sackable offence. But to sack Amorim 3 games into the season after you've just spent this much money in the transfer window and not give him any time is crazy. I said if we sacked Amorim, I couldn't be mad about it. I couldn't be upset about it because I've lost faith in Amorim. I've lost faith that he's going to make it work. But I said I've not said Amorim out. The reason I've not said Amorim out is purely off the basis that it's too early. It's too reactionary. It makes no financial sense. I'm losing faith in Amorim. I'm losing belief in Amorim. And it's getting to the point where, honestly, I'm like, if this continues, you're going to have to go. But I'm not Amorim out because we need to give him time. We need to give him midfielders. It's too early. To spend all this money on a manager and sack them in September would be ridiculous. That's the truth of the matter. Romano did speak about Lemens. Romano did sack and stop the pain now. Are we delaying the inevitable and not sacking him now? It feels like that. I get why people feel like that. People are like, if we just give him 10 games and we're crap in 10 games' time, are we delaying the inevitable? But we're at a point where we spent all this money. We've brought in a manager. We've shown so much faith in the manager. To sack him at the first hurdle, that is the concern, especially when the managers on the market aren't great. Bring back Rude. I mean, the best football we played was under Rude in the last year. Romano did say that we're back in talks with Lemens after yesterday's game. We want to find an agreement. Romano did say we're interested in Lemens. We're back in talks. Romano also said that negotiations with Will Batista and Antony are at a crucial stage, and reports coming out from Brazil that Antony's very close to signing for Real Betis. So we're looking at Lemens, we're backing for Lemens, and Antony is close to signing for Real Betis, according to reports coming out. Garnacho's gone to Chelsea as well in terms of news coming out. Ben Jacobs did mention on the United stand as well that Ruben Amorim feels that he needs at least one more midfielder before the end of the transfer window and is pushing for that. Obviously, Romano Nornstein said that Maynard wants to leave on loan, but United will not sanction that, and hopefully he doesn't leave on loan. But if Man United would be reluctant to let Maynard leave, if he did leave, they would sign a replacement. But the reason I want Baleba is for him to play with Maynard, not to replace Maynard. People, how are you doing, by the way, as well? How are you feeling ahead of the Burnley game? I do think we'll beat Burnley. I do think we'll win, because I'm trying to look at it and go, Grimsby was atrocious, don't get me wrong. But we've played 2 Premier League games this season, and in one and a half of those games, we were actually all right. In 1.5 of those games, we were actually right. It was the second half versus Fulham, which was bad. And because we saw signs versus Arsenal, because we saw signs in the first half versus Fulham, I'm confident enough that if we do that versus Burnley, we will beat Burnley and we will get a result. That's sort of my mindset on the situation. So I don't know where you're at. I do think we'll beat Burnley. It's hard to believe in the system and back the manager, but I'm trying to look at it in that perspective and think we can get a result versus Burnley. Some people think we'll lose, some people think we'll draw, some people think we'll get a narrow 1-0 win. I think we should beat them. But yeah, guys, go over and raid Never a Foul. Thank you for watching. Bye.